The lesson that we're going to cover today is on vector drawing techniques. This lesson is all about using the pen tool in Photoshop. If you take Adobe Illustrator, you will also get to work with the pen tool in that app as well. About bitmap images and vector graphics. There are two main categories of graphics, bitmap images and vector graphics. You can work with both inside of Photoshop and they can be combined in the same composition. Bitmap or raster images are built with pixels. They're great for photos because of their continuous tonal ranges. But when you enlarge a photo above its original size, you'll notice some pixelation, which causes the image to look blurry or jagged. On the other hand, there are vector graphics, which are made up of lines and curves based on mathematical objects that we call vectors. They retain their crisp look regardless of being transformed or scaled, so they are great for illustrations, type, and logos. Both are very important to a designer, even though they each have a distinct purpose. All right, there are two lesson files that we are going to work with today, and I'm going to go ahead and open up the first one. All right, so there is 0practice_start. Okay, that's the first one we're going to take a look at. And then we have 08 start. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and open both of them since I'm right here. All right, so our lesson tells us when we are working through, the book for the lesson that this particular file, they have you open and do the work, and then they have you save without closing. I do want you to save this. All right, you will be turning this particular file in for points. So please make sure you save this because you got to turn it in. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and do a save as and save this one. So I got to go to my file folder for lesson 8. All right, so this one is going to be resaved as 08practice_working. And it is a Photoshop file, so you can just leave it as such. Okay, now it's resaved. Perfect. So let's talk about paths and the pen tool first. Okay, all right, so the pen tool is one of 3 tools responsible for helping us to create vector images. A path is simply the outline of a vector shape. A path can be curved or it can be a straight line segment that you draw with the pen tool. Of course, the pen tool is going to kind of give us the greatest control. We also have the free form pen tool, which allows you to draw paths freehand like you are drawing with a pencil on paper. There's the curvature pen tool, and you can even use a shape tool. Paths can be open or they can be closed. An open path can be a line of some sort, okay? And it has 2 endpoints. A closed path is a shape. Closed paths can be filled with a color and have a stroke, okay? Now, an open path, you can have a stroke applied to it or you don't have to have a stroke applied to it, okay? All right. So there's actually quite a bit of information in this lesson that I'm actually talking to you about, going through that I've included on our notes before we actually get started using the pen tool on our 08practice_working. So bear with me for just a second. Okay, there are several sections in our text, okay, that talk about drawing a shape with the pen tool. There's on the page after that, creating paths with the pen tool that has a lot of great information in it. Please make sure that you read that. But I've actually included in the notes just drawing with the pen tool. All right, so that's going to include information from even drawing a straight line, drawing curves, drawing a more complex shape. Okay, so I've kind of just included some of the information from each of those sections into this portion of the notes that we're just going to talk about here very quickly. Okay, all right, paths include anchor points. Okay, those can be smooth or corner. And paths also include segments. Those can be straight or curved. When you draw a straight line, you will notice that anchor points mark the ends of the path segment. So there's one at the start and the end. The paths panel displays thumbnail previews of the paths that you draw. On curved segments, selecting an anchor point is going to display two direction lines, and those are smooth points, okay, or one direction line, which is a corner point. Direction lines end in direction points, and the positions of direction lines and points determine the size and the shape of the curved segment. When drawing a path with the pen tool, use as few points as possible to create the shape you want. The fewer the points, the smoother the curves, and the easier it will be to edit the shape later. You can press enter and that will complete the segment. Okay, so when you're done clicking to create that last anchor point, if you press enter on your keyboard, it will go ahead and complete that segment. So then if you click again with the pen tool, it won't connect the last anchor point of your segment with the first anchor point of the new segment. All right, you don't want to connect those lines if they're supposed to be two separate segments. Okay. All right, and then you can use your direct selection tool, and in parentheses, I have A, so that is the keyboard shortcut for your direct selection. And you would use that tool to select individual points or segments of a path to edit them. Okay, and you might be like, okay, that made no sense to me. Just hold on, and I'm going to walk through this with you, and this will make perfect sense. Okay. So in this lesson, you're going to be turning in 08 practice underscore working, okay, which is this one right here that you see on my screen. All right, the 08 start will be resaved as 08 working. All right, and you're going to be turning in this one along with the other one. Okay, in addition, I have an extra PAS assignment and I have created a YouTube video that will walk you through how to do those very short and very quick 4 extra little paths in there. You guys are going to be doing that and then also turning that in for an additional 20 points. All right. So when you are completely done with this lesson, you're going to have quite a bit of experience with using the pen tool. All right. Even if this is your first time with using the pen tool in any app. All right. So I'm going to come back over here, and this is where we're actually going to start. Okay. All right. So if you want to, you can actually work this with me, okay, as I'm doing this. So if you did, that'd be great. Okay, you could work this with me and save yours, and then that way you would be that much farther into this lesson and you would have one of the 2 assignments done. Okay, if you would like to watch me do this first and then go back and work it with me on the video at a later time, you can do that too. All right. The first thing that we need to do is we need to select our pen tool, and that keyboard shortcut is P. Okay. So if I hold down my left mouse button and the drop down box pops out, of course, here is the pen tool, freeform, and curvature that I was telling you about earlier. Okay, so we do want to make sure that we are using the pen tool. Now, up in our options bar at the top, we need to make sure that we have shape, all right, from the tool mode. Okay, so it says pick tool mode. You want to make sure on this assignment we're using shape. Okay, you want to make sure that rubber band is not selected. All right, so this looks like this little gear here. It's the path options. You want to make sure rubber band is not selected. Okay, all right, so that is important as well. So the auto add and delete, okay, you want to make sure there is a check mark in that. We don't want a color for fill, so white is not a color. All right, white is a color. So you want to make sure that you're selecting no color. I also call that none. So you want to make sure that your fill is the white that has the red slash through it. And then for the stroke, which is right here, you can just go ahead and choose kind of a darker green color. You can open these folders up and choose. I'll probably just choose this one right here. That's totally fine. And you want to be able to see your stroke. So I'm just going to go ahead and choose a 4 pixel. All right. So here's what we're going to do. okay? Basically, where we see filled circles, you're going to click once, okay? So right here, we're going to click on point A, and then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to click on point B, okay? This is one straight line segment. After that, I'm going to tap enter on my keyboard, all right? Because when I come down here and click on this point A, if I don't tap enter, it's going to connect this endpoint to this endpoint, and we don't want to do that, okay? Now, on the ones that we're creating curves for, all right, this is very important. So we're going to click one time on point A. Now, I need you guys to notice that before you click on point B, you're going to click, hold, and drag up here to this unfilled circle, all right? So I'm going to click, hold my left mouse button down, and drag to the unfilled circle. All right, I'm going to look ahead before I do it again. We have an unfilled circle. So I'm going to click and hold with my left mouse button and drag to the unfilled circle. And then I'm going to click on this point for D. And I'm going to tap enter on my keyboard. Because if I don't, my endpoint for D will connect to my endpoint for starting over here at A. And I don't want it to do that. Okay. All right. So here is how you can create a nice curve, okay? All right, so down here, this one's gonna work the exact same way. So before you actually start on this, take a look and see what points have unfilled circles that you're gonna have to click, hold, and drag to before you go on to the next one, all right? So we have point A. We can go ahead and click one time. Now our B has an unfilled circle. So I'm gonna click, I'm going to hold my left mouse button and I'm going to drag to the unfilled circle and release. All right, my C has an unfilled circle. So I'm going to click and I'm going to hold and drag out to my unfilled circle and then I'm going to release my left mouse button. My D has also an unfilled circle. So I'm going to click, hold, and drag my left mouse button to the unfilled circle and then I'm going to release my mouse button. I'm going to click on point E. I'm going to click, hold, and drag to the unfilled circle and release. I'm going to do the exact same thing for F. Click, hold, and drag and release. And then I'm going to click just one time on point G, and then I'm going to press enter on my keyboard. Okay? All right, so we're going to do a coffee cup shape. All right, so these are all segments. So we have a line segment and we have two curve segments. So now we're actually going to create a shape. Okay, it's going to be done the exact same way. Okay, also I wanted to show you guys that if you, I'm going to click on point A, and I wanted to show you that if you hold your shift key down and click point B, it'll keep that line straight for you, especially when you're drawing straight lines, or in this case, we're drawing a shape. All right, so I'm going to hold my shift button down first and then click on point C. I'm going to hold my shift button down and I'm going to click on point D. I can even do the exact same thing when I click on point E. Hold my shift key down and click on point E. Okay, so we're going to look ahead, all right, because we're going into a curve. So you always kind of want to look ahead at the point ahead of it before you actually click there. So our point F has an unfilled circle. So what are we going to do? Click, hold, and drag. All right, so we're going to click on point F and drag out to the unfilled circle. Now our point G also has one. Okay, so we have to finish this curve. All right, so we're going to have to drag out. So we're going to click on point G and drag out here to the unfilled circle. Okay, we can click on point H, which is right here. And then I'm just going to show you that to basically close a path, if you hold your cursor up here at the top where you started, notice that my pen tool now has a circle beside it. That's indicating that if I click where I've started, I will now complete or close the path, okay? So I could technically fill this closed path with a color if I wanted to, okay? All right, so this is how you would go about doing the 0-8 practice that they have for us in our lesson. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do a Control S and I'm going to save this. All right. So you will be turning this in for points. Okay. All right. So the next portion of our lesson is actually on drawing a path traced from a photo. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and close this one because we're completely done with it. All right, you can easily draw a path from an object in an image and save it as a path to select and use later. In the earlier exercise, you drew a shape and now you're going to draw a path. All right, the path that you draw will appear as a temporary path in the Paths panel. A path in this exercise is different because you won't need to set a stroke color to make it visible after it is drawn because we don't need to print it or export the path. Okay, so we are going to use the path to merely just create a mask. Okay, all right, so here is our 0-8 start. And I'm going to come up here to the top. And I'm going to go ahead to save as, and let's go ahead and get this renamed. Okay, so this 0-8 start is going to be renamed 0-8 working, just like all of our other ones. I'm going to find my folder and put this in with lesson 8. Okay, it's already a Photoshop file, so all you have to do is just rename the file name itself. Okay. So this time we want to make sure that we have our pen tool, and we do, okay? But up in our options bar at the top, I need to change this. So the 0-8 practice that we just did, from the pick tool mode, we had shape selected, all right? This time we need to change this to path, okay? So obviously we don't have all of these options like we did, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to do the exact same thing that we did. That's why we did the 0-8 practice first. And doing those curves and especially doing the coffee mug outline is really going to help us here because we're going to apply the same principle that we did here, okay? So if you take a look at it, it says, start by clicking here, okay? And then you're going to, and they approach it the same way. Click and then drag your handle to here. So we're going to continue to do that click, hold, and drag so that we can actually go through and create a path to select this particular orange. And the reason we're going to do that is because we're going to end up changing the color of the orange from orange to yellow and kind of make it look more like a lemon, all right? So that's the reason why we're going to do this. All right, so basically what we're going to do is we're going to start here. But before we do, I want you to take a look. We have a background, okay, which is our oranges. The background is locked, all right, so we can't move this background around, which is great. And then on top of that, we have a path guide, all right? So this guide is just for us to draw on, all right? And then when we're done with it, we can actually delete it. We won't need it anymore, okay? But you do want to make sure that you're on your guide. All right, so we're going to trace around this orange by clicking the corresponding white dots and dragging to those open dots, okay? So I am, though, when I get down here, I'm going to use my shift just to keep that a straight line, okay? And then we're going to just kind of work our way around here, all right? When we are completely done, we can use our direct selection tool, which is A on our keyboard, and we can evaluate and adjust any segments and points if we feel we need to do that. All right, so I'm going to click one time on A. All right, I'm going to click on B, and I'm going to hold my left mouse button, and I'm going to drag up here to the unfilled circle. I'm going to click on point C, and I'm going to click, hold, and I need to drag over here to the unfilled circle. I'm going to click on point D, and I'm going to click, hold, and drag to our unfilled circle. Do the exact same thing for E. Okay, do the exact same thing for F. And then G is one point by itself, so you can just click one time. Okay, I'm going to click point H, but we have an unfilled circle, so I need to kind of drag this over here. All right, I need to click on point I, and I need to drag down to its unfilled circle. All right, I'm going to click on point J one time. I'm going to hold my shift key down just to keep that straight line on point K. Now I'm going to click point L, and I'm going to drag up to that unfilled circle. I'm going to do the exact same thing for point M. I'm going to click, hold, and drag. Click on point N and click, hold, and drag to the unfilled circle. And then if I hover over point A, notice my pen tool has that little circle, okay, indicating that if I click, it's actually going to complete that path, okay? So this is great. This is exactly what it should look like, okay? Now, just using your direct selection tool, I just kind of wanted to point this out. You can go back in and evaluate. Maybe you got off your path a little bit. You just want to nudge something down or so on. You can use your direct selection tool, okay, which is this one right here. And you can come in and you can make some adjustments. So if you click on any of these main points, you can actually drag these points around, okay? You can also use your the direct handles, the direction handles, and you can adjust the curvature, okay? So I'm just kind of showing you guys that this is how you would do that. And this is using your direct selection tool. So if at any time any of these kind of look, you know, a little off or whatever, just know that you can go in and make some minor adjustments. Okay, there you have it. All right. So if we take a look over here, okay, in our paths panel, okay, here we see our work path. All right. So in the paths panel, it actually says work path. So I'm going to just double click that name work path. It's going to open up a dialog box for the save path. And I'm going to name this lemon. Okay. And then I'm just going to hit OK on my keyboard. All right. So that way we have renamed our work path. And then what we need to do is we need to come down here and we need to find our button that says load path as a selection. So if we come down here in the paths panel, okay, it's this one right here. It looks like it's going to have the animated dashed lines around it. So if I click that, all right, you're going to see how we have animated dashed lines, okay? So here's something that I want to point out to you, okay? So if you happen to have animated dashed lines around everything like I do, okay, then what you're going to want to do is to go up here to select and inverse so that you only get the animated dashed lines around your orange or what's soon to be your lemon, okay? If you don't have the animated dashed lines around the whole thing like I did, then you won't have to do that by going to select and inverse. That's only if you do, okay? If you do your steps and you load your path as a selection and this is what you get, that's perfect, okay? I just wanted to show you that if by chance you load your path as a selection and you're like, oh, I've got animated dashed lines around the edge of my, project, then it's a very easy fix. Select and inverse, and you're going to end up in the same spot, okay? So basically, all you want is your orange to be selected because now we are going to change the color to make that yellow and then turn it into a lemon. All right, so I'm going to come back over here to my layers panel. Okay, and I'm just going to hide my path guide because I don't need it anymore. So I'm just going to make it to where it's not visible. so that I can just see my loaded selection. Okay, so my path is now loaded as a selection. Okay, so I'm going to select my background layer and I'm going to click in the adjustments and I'm going to select hue and saturation and I'm going to change the hue to 17. Okay, and voila, you've now just changed an orange into a lemon by adjusting the hue to take it from orange to yellow. Okay, all right, so this looks great. I'm going to go ahead and do a Control S and I'm going to save this. This lesson ends with create a logo with text and a custom shape. All right, now you know that you guys can use your horizontal type tool to type text. You can also use your shapes panel to find and insert a shape, which is a pre-made graphic, into your design. When you add a shape, the layer then becomes a shape layer, and then you can change the fill and the stroke. A shape is a vector object drawn using paths, and it does have two advantages. Number one, you can edit it in the same way you would edit the paths that you draw. And two, a path is resolution independent, so it'll always be smooth and detailed as the document resolution allows. Okay, all right, so you want to make sure that your rulers are set to inches, and if by chance yours are not, remember that first off, make sure they are showing by going to View and Rulers. Okay, and then if they are not inches, just right click on the ruler and you can easily change that. Okay, so back here, back down in my layers panel, you want to make sure that the hue and saturation layer is selected. Okay, so this was the last one that we did. We had selected the background and then we added the hue and adjustment, okay, by adding the plus 17 to hue. So it actually put that adjustment on its own layer. So remember, we can toggle that on and off and go back to the orange. Okay. All right. So I want to make sure that that layer is selected because I'm going to use my type tool. And remember, the horizontal type tool is T on your keyboard. Okay. And then I'm going to go ahead and change this to, I think they just have us use Arial, which is kind of a plain, sans serif. All right, so we're going to use Arial, and they're going to have us use, I think it's bold, and 55 point. Now remember, if it reverts back on your font size, you can go and reselect that and change it. All right, right aligns, and my color is still white. So if yours happens to be a different color, no worries. Just open it up to the color picker, which is the text color, and make sure you have at least 3 Fs in there, and that will change your color to white. Okay. Now I wanted to point out to you, it does it every single time. All right. If I had not opened up the set text color, that would have remained at 55 point. I just watched it do it. All right. So just be careful about that. If you have to change your color, it might be a good idea, you guys, for just to put your point size in last instead of first and see if it retains it. Okay. All right, so I'm going to click to drag a 9-inch by 1-inch text layer across the bottom. That's probably going to be about a 1/2 inch away from the edge. So if I just put a guide in here, just for the sake of showing you where the 1/2 inch is, okay? So this is a 1/2 inch. So this is going to be pretty much all the way across here, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw. This is basically drawing a text box. You could probably even just click as well and create this. And then I'm going to delete out the lorem ipsum. And I'm going to type in here, Citrus Lane Farms. Okay. All right. So I'm going to go ahead, now that we have text in the document, all right, remember that you can also use your properties panel. And then, of course, you can always use your characters panel as well. But we need to apply some different features here, all right? Now, we have normally been working with all caps, so actually my retained that from a previous lesson where we had used type. They do want the all caps button selected. They do want us to change our tracking to a minus 25, okay? So actually, I'm gonna go ahead and select this first before I do that. All right, so I just double clicked on the thumbnail for T in the layers panel, okay? My all caps had already been selected prior to, that's why it came in all caps, but I do need to change my tracking again to minus 25, okay? So there we go. And then of course I can reposition this with my move tool if necessary, okay? So there's great screenshots in the lesson. So you'll make sure that you've got this in the right spot. And actually mine is, so I'm happy with that, okay? All right, so I'm gonna click to commit to the changes that I made by using the check mark that's up in the options bar at the top. And then that's what that should look like when it's done, okay? All right, so basically all we're gonna do here at the end is to add a preset shape. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and go to Window and Shapes. Yes, there is a panel for that too. All right, and then I've already used my flowers before. That's why my flowers folder is already expanded. But if yours is not, basically what you want to do is find your flowers folder and then just click the downward facing arrow to expand it because all these are collapsed. I mean, they're all collapsed. You want to expand it. All right, and you want to actually use the very last flower in that group, which is this one right here. You see that flower? So basically, we're going to just grab a hold of this and drag it and drop it into our document, into our composition. And then that is what that looks like, okay? So we can resize this flower to make it just a little bit smaller. Okay, they are telling us to just resize it to about 1.5 inches tall. Mine's not going to be exact, but as long as you get in the vicinity of it, I think that's going to be fine. Okay. All right, and I'm going to use my move tool and I'm going to just move this over just a little bit. All right, so it's more in line. All right, so if we take a look at, I'm going to collapse my shapes panel over here. If we take a look over in our layers panel, all right, it's the active layer, and you can see it says shape 42, and then there's a space and it says 1, okay, because that's the first shape that we have added into our panel, okay? I'm going to just rename that. And I'm just going to put in here flower and then press enter. That way I know exactly what it is. Yes, I understand that this is going to be the only shape I have for this assignment, but it's just getting us into the habit of renaming those layers regardless, okay? All right, so basically what we need to do is I just need to make sure that I have my shape. It can be any of the shape tools in the tools panel. You want to make sure that it is selected, all right? So that keyboard shortcut for the shape tools is U on your keyboards, okay? So I have mine selected. Actually, the last tool that I had selected was the custom shape tool. And I know that because I have a little filled square next to it, and that's the one that is showing, okay? So with any of the shape tools selected in the tools panel, we want to change our fill swatch in our options bar, okay, to the RGB yellow swatch, okay, and then our stroke, we want to make sure we have that set to none. All right, so our stroke is none, and then our fill will be under RGB, and it'll be this bright yellow one right here, okay? And then, of course, I'm going to use my move tool, and I'm just going to kind of click off of it, and then this is what it looks like when it is finished, okay? So if you take a look at pretty much the last page of this lesson. Okay. Um, it does not end with number 9. All right. You actually have to flip the page over. And then at the top of that page, there is steps 10, 11, 12, and 13 and 14. And then that actually ends the lesson with save your work. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and go to view and guides. And I'm going to clear my guides out because I had just added a guide just that ½ inch over just to show you where I was going to start with that type layer. All right, so this looks great. I'm going to do a Control S and I'm going to save that. Now there is actually 3 pages in this lesson that say extra credit, and those I'm not assigning. You don't have to do that. I'm not awarding extra credit, so you can just skip over that. Okay. So whenever you see step number 14 in the book, it actually gives you a screenshot right above step 14 that shows you, you can see like the bottom of the lemon part right here. And then, but it's actually showing you this, the flower with the Citrus Lane Farms. All right. Then you're done. Okay. Just make sure that you save your work. All right. This is what 08 working looks like when it is completely finished. Okay, so this wraps up our chapter on vector drawing techniques.